Before Israel ever crossed the Jordan River, God sat them down and told them something that should have stopped them cold. He didn't warn them about swords. He warned them about fire and what the people of Canaan had been doing with it. Most people read the conquest of Canaan as a story about land, about tribes and battles and borders. But if you slow down and actually read the passages leading up to it, there's something underneath all of that. Something God made very explicit and very serious. A practice so disturbing that he used it as the primary reason an entire civilization had to be removed from the earth. We're talking about child sacrifice, and the Bible doesn't avoid it. In Leviticus 18, before God lists any other prohibition, he says this: "You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Molech, and so profane the name of your God." That's verse 21. And just 2 chapters later, in Leviticus 20, he revisits it with even greater weight. Anyone who gave their child to Molech was to be put to death. And if the community looked the other way, God himself said he would cut them off. That level of severity is rare in the law. It tells you something about what this actually was. Molech, sometimes spelled Moloch, was a deity worshipped across Canaan and the surrounding regions. The name likely comes from a root connected to king or rule, and the way he was worshipped was through fire, specifically through the burning of infants and young children in a ritual offering. The site where this most often happened in and around Jerusalem was called Topheth, located in the Valley of Hinnom, a place that would later become so synonymous with horror and defilement that Jesus used its name, Gehenna, as a word for hell itself. There's something here that many overlook. This wasn't a fringe practice. Deuteronomy 12:31 says the Canaanites burned their sons and daughters in the fire for their gods, and God described it as something he hates, and the word used is strong, personal, not just disapproval, hatred, which is a word Scripture uses carefully. And here's where it gets even harder to sit with. Israel didn't stay clean from it, not even close. 2 Kings 16 tells us that King Ahaz, a king of Judah, a descendant of David, burned his own son as an offering. The text is matter-of-fact about it. Verse 3, "He even burned his son as an offering, according to the despicable practices of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel." And he wasn't the last. By the time of Jeremiah, the prophet is standing at Topheth saying, in chapter 32, that God never commanded this, never even considered it, that it was something that never entered his mind. That phrase, never entered his mind. Think about what that communicates. It's not just condemnation, it's a statement of total foreignness. This was never part of who God is or what he wanted, which means every nation that practiced it was operating under a completely different understanding of what gods were, what they wanted, and what a human life was worth. Psalm 106 puts it plainly. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. They poured out innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan. Verses 37 and 38. The psalmist doesn't call them gods, he calls them demons. That's the Bible's own interpretation of what was really being worshipped. If you read this carefully, a pattern starts to emerge. The conquest of Canaan was not primarily a territorial story. It was a story about what happens when a culture builds itself on the destruction of the innocent, when the most vulnerable lives become currency for power. God called the land itself defiled, not just the people, the land, as if the ground had absorbed something it couldn't hold. And the warning to Israel was simple. If you do what they did, the land will do to you what it did to them. Most people never read it that way. They see the conquest and ask, how could a good God allow this? But the text is asking a different question entirely. It's asking, when a civilization chooses that path, how long does it last? And what does that say about the gods they were really serving? That question still doesn't have an easy answer, but it might change how you read the whole story from the very beginning.